Assalamualaikum, my name is SITI SAFWAN binti Abdul Halim.
So, Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is AMIR KHAIRUNNAS bin MUHAMAD ADNAN.
I am Raja Muhammad SAFWAN bin Raja YUSOH.
Hi and Assalamualaikum, my name is Najihah AFIQAH binti RONI.
Foreign policy can be described as the objective, strategy and activities of a nation to communicate with another country. In a specific way, the foreign policy focuses on the measurement made by a government to affect the circumstances beyond its authority. Is to protect a country's interests, peace and security. The connection between two countries is essential and critical. This is because most nations are interdependent in a variety of ways, including politics, economy, technology and security. Developed countries must build ties with emerging nations, particularly in the area of commerce. Malaysia's foreign policy is officially founded on the principles of neutrality and preserving peaceful ties with all nations, regardless of their ideology or political system, as well as expanding connection with other region countries. One of Malaysian principle of problem solving is through negotiations. Malaysia committed to the concept of friendly resolution with other nation and diplomatic ties with any country willing to cooperate. Malaysia's decision to settle the international dispute through negotiation or round table with as much as a discussion, let alone through force and concerns. Furthermore, Malaysia committed to concept of living in peace and harmony. The foreign policy during the Tunku Abdul Rahman Al-Hajj era 1957 until 1970 in Tanah Melayu or Malaysia is a priority diplomatic relation with neighbouring countries because had just recently gained independence. Due to the threat of communists, the country was unsafe at the time and military capabilities were restricted. This situation has presented Tunku with unique challenges and issues in comparison to the preceding Prime Minister. As a result, Tunku Abdul Rahman's foreign policy was reasonably low-key and strict. Tunku Abdul Rahman concentrate his effort on maintaining the newly independent country and stabilizing the country political situation, bolstering military capability and most importantly reducing and narrowing Malaya ethnic divides. From other perspective, foreign policy under Tunku Abdul Rahman's administration triggered war in Southeast Asia as a reaction or response to Tunku's efforts to create the Federal of Malaya. Following Malaysia's creation, the regionally political environment experienced numerous events that tested the country's diplomatic skill, including a dispute with Indonesia and a disagreement with the Philippines over their aspiration for Sabah. As a result, Tunku became more forceful in seeking international banking and financial help from colony power in order to preserve his pro-Western views. Additionally, we can see from the issue of President Diosdado Macapagal claim that Sabah is part of its territory in 1962, the underlying dispute between Malaysia and the Philippines, and this issue is still happening until this day. Other than that, conflict between Malaysia and Indonesia. Indonesia does not agree with the creation of Association of Southeast Asia (ASA) because of this assumed to Malaysia. They said that Malaysia was the spy for British and the puppet of British. Because of all this, Association of Southeast Asia (ASA) has not been able to grow due to the prejudiced attitude and negative perception towards other countries.
Other than that, we also can see the foreign policy that contributed by our first Prime Minister, which is Tunku Abdul Rahman, from the reformation of ASA, which is the short form of Association of Southeast Asia in the year 1960. And as for information, we can say that ASA was a starting point towards the reformation of ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which consists of 10 Southeast Asia countries. However, for the ASA, the membership only limited to 3 Southeast Asia countries, which is Malaya, Philippines and Thailand. In 1960, these 3 countries decided to establish ASA, which intended to give support, especially in terms of national security and defenses. So another policy made by Tunku Abdul Rahman is emphasizing on Commonwealth relations, anti-communist strategies and regional relations. He found communists as a threat to our nation after they gained the independence. So as for an earlier step, which is in 1957, Tunku signed up the Anglo-Malaya Defence Agreement, which is AMDA, with Britain. This is because, as we already know, Malaya was not ready in terms of security and defences, as their colonial power take a step to left their country after the independence. So as an earlier steps, our former Prime Minister took a step to sign up an agreement, namely AMDA. On a simple word, with the policy agreement with Britain, anything that is become threats to Malaya, Britain will interfere to help in terms of security and defences. So to add more, besides Britain, Australia and New Zealand was also among of the Western countries where they will also join the agreement. To make this clear, even though that Malaysia seeking help from their own colonial power, it doesn't mean that they are weak. We are weak. Malaysia chose to use a democratic approach rather than war and violence. This is because Malaysia more focusing on sustaining the peaceful and harmonizing environment in our country.
So when Tunku Abdul Razak became the Deputy Prime Minister, there's a hot issue between Malaysia and Philippines, where Philippines want to claim Sabah, as Sabah once becoming the territory of Sultanate of Sulu. However, after the formation of ASEAN, Philippines then slowed down their activities on claiming Sabah. Malaysia, after Tunku Abdul Razak became the second Prime Minister, Malaysia then shift towards the pro-Western to be more moderate, neutral and also pragmatic position. So in 1971, ASEAN consists of Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore and also Indonesia. Through their foreign minister have signed a declaration named ZOFAN. ZOFAN is the short terms for Zone of Peace, Freedom and also Neutrality. ZOFAN declaration will promote the peace and stability through law and also regional cooperation. ZOFAN also will strengthen the economic and social stability among the Asian countries to make sure that their residents live happily and peaceful in their countries, with the countries developed in a progressive way.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Diplomatic ties between China and Malaysia started on 31 May 1974, whereby to complement the domestic policy of racial integration and nations building strategy post on 13 May 1969 tragedy. That tragedy caused bloodshed and loss of life that led to YDP to announce national emergency and Parliament to suspend and being taken over by the Majlis Gerakan Negara Migran for a while. Under the foreign policy of Tun Abdul Razak, he made a diplomatic ties with China even to Malaysia still in the threat of Malayan Communist Party MCP, hoping that People Republic of China PRC stop support the MCP, which that Malaysians become the first country in Southeast Asia that having relations with China and started followed by other Southeast Asia country after that, which the Shanghai Declaration. China stated that anybody born in China who already possess Malaysia's citizenship will lose their citizenship, and for those who still have China nationality must obey law and respect Malaysia's custom right and more. Due to that result in Malaysia's foreign policy centered on equal distance approach with regard to outside power. Not only that, due to the joining of Organization of Islamic Conference OIC and an aligned movement, now the foreign policy under the Tun Abdul Razak began to shift to non-alignment and internationalism. Tun Abdul Razak believed that joining the NAM, the country's decision to remain non-aligned with any bloc power due to the NAM member adhere to a rigorous non-alignment stance and didn't on the side of democratic either communist bloc. But the foreign policy benefit harsh result in his effort of OIC. He also established the first economic ties with other Islamic national, and this bring the name of Malaysia around the world.
So we can see from the information above, there are a lot of foreign policy introduced by both our Prime Ministers, who is Tunku Abdul Rahman and Tun Abdul Razak, in order to keep our country lives in harmony and peacefully. We can see from the foreign policy under Tunku Abdul Rahman, it is more focusing on diplomatic relation with other countries, including Western countries, but more likely to be biased, while Tun Abdul Razak's policy didn't apply biases and having diplomatic ties with almost with every countries. However, despite of their challenges that they had to face in order to implement the policy, they still didn't give up to fight for our nation to make sure that our country are safe from any threats and will become an peaceful and harmonizing countries without any fights, especially between Malay and non-Malay, as we don't want that the 13th May tragedy might be happen again. So to sum all this up, it is very crucial for our nation to implement foreign policy, as we not just can help in terms of our national defenses, but it is also can contribute towards the development of our economic and political system, so that our country can continue towards the developing countries as the same as other developed countries.
Saya kasih bulan negeri kita ini, masa saya ambil bahagian berjuang kerana merdeka. Kalah menang pun saya tak tahu, mati hidup pun saya tak tahu. Tapi dengan kerana kasih sayang dan negeri ini, saya ambil bahagian berjuang kerana merdeka dan dapat merdeka dengan kuasa Allah Ta'ala, dengan bantuan rakyat jelata sekalian. Sekarang ni kalau bayar saya 1 million gaji pun saya tak terima. Pasal saya tak boleh buat, saya tua. Tapi saya cumanya masuk nak membelakan UMNO, nak membelakan negeri ini. Kerana negeri inilah negeri kita. Apa jadi pun, baik buruk pun, inilah negeri kita. Di sini kita lahir dan di sini kita mati. Biar saya mati dalam perjuangan, asalnya saya tidak lepaskan tangan saya apabila lihat kejadian dalam negeri seumpama ini. Tapi yang berpegang kuasa dalam negeri ini ialah rakyat jelata sekalian. Jadi kalau tak timbang apa yang sebenarnya dan menggunakan akal fikiran untuk menimbang satu suka yang disebut oleh saja, negeri ini akan rosak. Kalau rakyat boleh faham segala-galanya itu, pada akhirnya mengundi di tangan rakyat. Dan rakyat sendiri boleh lantikkan siapa yang boleh jadi ketua di sini. Tapi rakyat jelata pakai apa, timbanglah sendiri. Karena lampu ajaib itu ada di tangan rakyat jelata sekalian. Jagalah lampu itu dan jaga UMNO. Jangan bagi orang Melayu berpecah belah sampai jadi hancur lebur dan balik kepada asal. Kita ini lemah, tak ada suara, tak ada kekuatan. Jadi rakyat jelata lah, dalam tangan mereka ada kekuatan itu. Gunalah akal, jalanlah kekuatan itu untuk memeliharakan negeri Malaysia yang dikasihi ini. Karena bukan kita saja pada hari ini yang bergantung kepada negeri kita ini, kepada keadilan negeri kita ini, bahkan keturunan kita yang akan datang ini, semuanya bergantung kepada pemerintahan negeri kita ini. Jadi kalau selamat merdeka ini ada makna atau diberikan makna, selamatlah mereka sampai akhir zaman. Itulah tanggung kita. Saya doa semua akan selamat.